The Chief Justice effectively argues, I'm not going to testify because you can't make me. What are you going to do? That's the question. What are Senate Democrats going to do about it? Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is a Democrat of Rhode Island who serves on the Judiciary Committee and has been pushing for Supreme Court ethics reform for years, and he joins me now. Senator, perhaps I took more offense to this letter than I should have. Maybe I got too worked up about it. How did you receive the letter from the Chief Justice replying to your committee's invitation to testify?
Well, two things stood out. The first was that he felt obliged to attach a document to his letter that was a 5-page, I want to say, memorandum about judicial ethics that all 9 justices had apparently signed, as if that was going to solve the problem. And what was noticeable about that, one, clearly they're feeling some real pressure if they feel they have to put an addendum like that onto the letter to tell the world we take ethics seriously. And then unbelievably, the actual gap in their ethics is not that there's no ethics code. There is a judicial code of ethics. It's not that there aren't statutes. There are statutes. It's that they have no process for investigating or enforcing the code and the statutes as to themselves. And they don't even mention that problem, let alone cure it, in all the pages of their memorandum. So, I mean, that's kind of send the associate back legal work coming from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Well, it also seems to me there's a kind of deeper principle. There's 2 deeper principles. One is a principle that is a cornerstone of the Anglo-American legal tradition, which is no man can be a judge in his own case. And in fact, that has been cited, if I'm not mistaken, by the Chief Justice himself in Supreme Court decisions he's handed down. And yet this clearly seems to be the case here, that they are judges in their own case. We judge whether we violated ethics, which is, again, nice work if you can get it. I'm sure everyone would like that setup, but that seems insufficient on its face.
Indefensible, I think, actually, when you look at every other official in the federal government, all of the other judges who wear robes in the federal judiciary, nobody enjoys that kind of impunity. And this is not some recent rule that you shouldn't be judged in your own case. It's so old, it's in Latin. Nemo judex in sua causa. This goes way back. This is a core principle of justice that they are just flouting.
Well, there's also a question of the remedy and what it would mean constitutionally, right? I mean, you have, I think, a judicial ethics bill that you've written that would attempt to redress some of this, right?
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, when you hear that Scalia sound where he talks about the independence of the judiciary, and there's a little preamble in Chief Justice's letter, if I recall correctly, where he sort of says the same thing, which seems to imply a kind of constitutional hardball, which is, as a constitutional matter, we are independent and you can't regulate our ethics.
Well, first of all, think about why it is that a court needs to be independent. A court needs to be independent so that it can be impartial. The real value here is impartial justice.
Right.
And independence is a mechanism of assuring impartiality. Now, they're using their independence as a device to protect obvious partiality and to exempt themselves from ethics rules and statutes. So there's a kind of a contortionist quality to that argument.
Let me ask you about the state of your committee. This was a voluntary invitation, but right now, one of the Democratic senators on your committee, Dianne Feinstein of California, has taken ill. She is unable to be in Washington for committee votes. It means the Democrats don't have an outright majority on that Judiciary Committee. There's many people who think this is a bad situation. There's been calls on your colleague, Senator Feinstein, to resign to the extent that she's unable to carry out her duties. Do you understand why people are making that call? Is it affecting the committee's work?
Well, I think it's slowing down some judges where there is a pure partisan vote, because you have to use a device to discharge the judge's vote from the Senate, from the committee up to the Senate, and it takes extra time. And then on other investigative questions, whether or not we have enough votes for a subpoena is a different question. That too ends up in the Senate if it's challenged. So it would be, I think, better and things would run more smoothly and will run more smoothly when Diane returns. But in the meantime, we're pushing forward. We're continuing to do the investigation into the court's ethics shenanigans, and we're continuing to clear judges.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which just received a brush off from the Chief Justice. Thank you for joining us tonight.